interdisciplinary dialogue between human and animal health, in keeping with the One Health vision that underpins many of our institutional programs. Now to formally commence today's program, I would like to invite Dr. G. Taru Sharma, Director NRB, to address the gathering and share her thoughts.
Thank you very much, Yash. A very good morning to one and all. Welcome for this distinguished lecture. And I, on my own behalf and on behalf of all the NIABians, profusely thank Professor Karthikeyan. We have been planning from last couple of months, but it just happened on this 8th. Immensely happy. Professor Karthik, fantastic director colleague amongst the DBT Institute, and noted clinician, as was rightly said, a cardiologist to be precise, and an alumni of Zipmer, Ames, and I think this goes long. So we have been talking, and what we have really been talking, I used to wonder when we are running a One Health program in this country. And there is another DBT Institute, THSTI, they are focused on human health. So why are we not part together in this? So a bunch of time we have just spoken, and from their lens, how should it be? That will be very nice. And then he was very careful and very critical in choosing that how should he really be interacting with all of us. He knows clearly what our colleagues work at and what's our cohort. And so this morning he's here. Thank you very much. And with that, we're looking forward.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your inspiring words and for setting the tone for today's lecture. So it's now my honor to introduce our esteemed speaker for the day, Professor Ganeshan Karthikeyan, Executive Director, BRIC, THSTI, Professor of Cardiology at AIMS, New Delhi. So Professor Karthikeyan academic journey began at Jipmer, Pondicherry, where he completed his MBBS in 1993 and MD in General Medicine in 1997. He went on to specialize in cardiology with a DM from AIMS in 2021 and further enriched his research credential with an MSc in Health Research Methodology from McMaster University, Canada in 2009. Over the year, he has emerged as a globally recognized thought leader in cardiovascular medicine, with his research focusing on disease of critical relevance to low and middle income countries, such as rheumatic heart disease, mechanical valve thrombosis, anticoagulation strategies, and the evaluation of indigenous drug eluting stents. Professor Karthikeyan currently serves as the editor-in-chief of BMJ Open Heart and holds editorial responsibility in several leading cardiology journals. He is also a senior international fellow at the Population Health Research Institute at McMaster University, a fellow of both the Academies of Medical Sciences and the National Academy of Sciences, India. Importantly, his work also extends to health policies. He chairs the Technical Advisory Group under the Government of India's Medical Technology Assessment Board, contributing expert guidance on cost effectiveness of health technologies. He also plays a key role in designing cardiology reimbursement packages under the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, the flagship health insurance scheme of our country. And the list goes on. So we are truly fortunate to have him with us today, and his lecture promises to provide deep insight into how to do translation research in India. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Professor G. Karthikeyan to deliver his lecture. Welcome, sir. Yeah, it's audible.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Taru, for inviting me here. It's a beautiful campus you have here. Nice weather today. and I'm sorry I'm keeping you inside. So how to do translational research in India is, I mean, it looks like everybody is hyped up my whatever I'm going to say. So I don't want it to be a damp squib. So let me tone down expectations. We don't do very good translation research in this country. So we are only trying to do better than what we are doing. So these are just some thoughts that, so I am new to this field as well. So I'm a clinical cardiologist. I only do clinical research. But when they asked me to take on this responsibility to lead a translation research institute, I had to learn. So I'm still learning. So these are just some thoughts which I have developed over this last 1 year that I've been with that institute. So you can disagree with me. You can we can discuss this as well. So it is just something that I think we need to do. So I'm not going to give you solutions to how to do. At the end of this lecture, you will not suddenly start doing translation and research. It's not going to be that, obviously. So I'll just give you a background about how we do translation research in this country. So if you think about it, one way of looking at it is drugs. How many drugs have we developed in the last, say, 50 years? So there is a list. You can get this on the internet. So this is, you'll see that most of them have been developed earlier on with by one institute, CDRI Lucknow. And then there is some collaboration with some Indian pharma. But those of you who know a little bit about medicines, you will realize that none of them are really used, except for maybe just one medicine which was recently introduced, maybe 10 years ago. None of them are really in use. So practically, although we seem to have developed some 20, 25 drugs in the last 50 years, we've never really created a blockbuster or even a very useful medicine that is used routinely in this country. But if you have to compare, every year about 50, 55 drugs are approved in the world. And half of these come from the United States alone, just one country, which is just 1/4 our size in terms of population. So they must be doing something better than us, clearly, right? So we are, or let's say we are not doing the right things. So this is a important way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is, if you look at the contribution of different continents, we may think that we are very good in Asia. So if you see, the Asian contribution is just this much. So this is North America and this is Europe. So rest of it is quite, so China is probably most of the contribution of Asia here. So you'll see that, again, Japan traditionally has been much more active. China is taking over now, but India is still quite behind, quite far behind. If you see, out of those 20, 25 that I showed you, just about 4 have figure in this list, which is recent list. So we, not only in the world, but even in Asia, we are not one of the best. So that brings to us the question that, can we really do science in this country? So we've generally been taught that, okay, ancient science in India was very good and all that, but we never did science after that. So this is a book I recommend to everybody, whoever is this now on the current bestsellers list in Amazon, if you can get it. So this is by William Dalrymple. William Dalrymple is a Scottish historian. He lives in India. He lives in a farmhouse in Delhi. So practically he's Indian. So he, quite unlike other Western historians and Western thought leaders, he has a very balanced view of what India has achieved or India has contributed. So this book actually tells you things which most of us don't know, and we ought to know what our contribution has been to, say, science and mathematics and, sorry, where did that go? Yeah. So this is a picture from a map from this book. So it shows the field of influence that India particularly had in its heydays, and it's not very. It's just about maybe a couple of centuries ago. So we have contributed quite significantly, and we have been able to do science. It's not that we are incapable of doing science. for doing science, you need to have an environment which allows you to think rationally. So that is something which, if you see, we have been doing. So this is a, I don't know how they manage this. This is a painting by a watercolor painting by a Western artist of Sushruta, the one of the earliest surgeons. He devised so many techniques which were not known till maybe the 19th century, 20th century in the West, and they were adapted actually. So rhinoplasty, because in ancient times people were when they were punished, their noses were cut off. So people when they wanted to look better, so Sushruta developed a flap rhinoplasty, which is still used today. So this was done many several centuries ago, and he was one of the first to extract cataracts, and it's practically the same procedure that is used till about 50 years ago. It's the same procedure which was used. So it is not that we don't know how to do science. We can do science, but we need to learn some lessons from other people who were also capable of doing science, but they stopped doing science. So you know that most of these, say, algebra and a lot of mathematics, a lot of science developed in the Arab period. So that is about, in the beginning of the Common Era. So till about 600, 650 or 1200, up to 1200 BC, so CE. So this is a lot of people in the Arab world, they developed. So this is in the along the Silk Route. If you see, there are a lot of scientists, a lot of science developed and flourished. What we call now Baghdad, Syria, all these places were very hotbeds of science actually. And they developed so many things that we use again today: optics, algebra, geometry, trigonometry. Lots of things were developed, and there was a lot of collaboration between the Indian scholars and the Arabic scholars, and this was before the onset of, say, hardcore Islam. So before that, they were all Arabs, they were all Muslims from about 600 CE, but then they still did science. But then there was, so this is not just one of them, but I don't know, I don't know if I'm boring you, but this is something which I think is very important to consider. So there was this person, so there was an irrational movement which took hold of Islam in about 1000 CE. Islam was born only about 600 CE, all of you know that, right? So about 600, 650 is when Prophet Muhammad declared a new religion. But they were still doing science as we know it. But then subsequently, there were some irrationalists among them who took over and who said that science is only for knowing what God decided, not for finding new things or not for explaining. You cannot explain what God has already done. So this is something which took over Islam, and unfortunately, that led to lot of destruction. So some of the biggest, most valuable libraries were in Baghdad, and they were all burnt. They were all razed to the ground. And so what we know from about the Islamic Golden Age, the Arabic Golden Age, comes from the West, because they translated those books into European languages, and they are housed in, so the Greek and Roman traditions developed from the Arabic traditions. So what we know from about these come from the Europeans, because they took it all to Europe, and now we know them as European knowledge. But actually, it all originated in this side of in the east side, not from the west. So, but these people stopped doing science. So actually, that's a problem. So you know, Neil deGrasse Tyson is an astrophysicist. He's a black astrophysicist. You may have seen his videos on YouTube. So he's written about this quite extensively. He says he worries that about 1.6 billion people, which is from the Islamic world, who were doing science, very good science, have stopped doing science because of the way their environment has shaped. So that is something which we cannot allow in our country. And so so we have to, it's not about a religion. I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about the way of thinking. I'm talking about rationality, whether we have to question things or not. So same things have happened in India too. So why did we stop doing science for about 1.5 centuries? So again, there was a hierarchy. People said you cannot question what is written in the books. You cannot ask, you cannot change things. You cannot find new ways of doing the same old thing. So that cannot happen. So that is something which we need to protect against. But thankfully, we did, after we became free from our colonialists, we actually invested in science. And even though we were a very poor country, we invested in science. And we were one of the, can you imagine that in the 1960s, when we were really a poor country, half of us were illiterate, we managed to send satellites into space. And coming now, if you see, this is just a metric, one metric that we commonly use about publications. When you look at science publications, we are quite high up there in terms of total number of publications. Let's not go into per capita publications because we are a large population. A lot of them are not doing science. But for science to progress, you need just a critical mass. You need a certain number of publications in a particular field, then you can actually progress. So it's important to look at the total number of publications too. So we are quite high up in that metric. Despite being a relatively poor country, we don't invest so much in science as, let's say, the United States or China is now doing. But we still do punch above our weight. So when we're doing all this, so what is our problem? Why are we not able to produce those medicines or produce those breakthroughs in science? So there are several ways of looking at it. And so I think that whenever you think about a technology, you are going to release 5 new technologies tomorrow in the presence of the minister. So whenever we think of technologies, there is a life cycle to the technology, how it develops, how it matures, and how it goes into practical use. So there is a problem in which, in how we handle this in this country. So in general, this is a graph that is given for any technology, right? This depicts the value of death, so-called value of death. So whenever there is an idea, a bright idea, it looks very good in the beginning, but then it doesn't get funding in the right moment, or it's not mature for that time of the at that particular point in time. So it just falls out of favor, and then it just dies. So every technology has to escape that value of death. Every scientific breakthrough has to escape that value of death. But when you look at our context, I think there is not just one value of death. There are several values of death. So I like to think of 3 particular values of death that all of us in this field, so all of us are doing translation in one way or another. We want to develop, we do science, we want to take it to develop a technology, and we want to take it to practical use. So that is translation, really. So I think there are three things that we need to think about. So this is something which Dr. Balram, P. Balram, who is from the Indian Institute of Science, all of you know him. So he gave a talk once, and he referred to this Pasteur's quadrant, a book. So this guy, Donald Stokes, he was a bureaucrat in the Bush administration, the old Bush administration in the United States. And at that point in time, they were realizing that the Cold War was on, and Russia was kind of falling behind in technology. Initially, Russia was the main opponent of the United States. They were fighting over, they had this space race, for example. But they realized that Russia was on the decline. But then China was catching up, and so was Japan. So they wanted to really rearrange how they did science, so that they wanted to stay ahead of the race. So this person, he brainstormed, and he decided that he wanted to classify research. So this is the modified version of what he showed. So he said research can be looked at in multiple ways. So you see, there is this is pure basic research, just for the heck of it. I mean, you want to ask questions, you want to explain things in the world. So that is what Niels Bohr did, right? So he explained the world. He explained, he's the father of quantum mechanics. And then there is the Edison quadrant, which is not pure research at all. He was only interested in developing products. He was not interested in the science. He wanted to develop products for, say, making money. He was a capitalist at heart. So he just developed the light bulb. He developed 1,000 other things. And all of them, he didn't bother about what was the science behind it, but he just wanted to take it to market. That's what he did. But then there is Pasteur. All of you know Louis Pasteur. Louis Pasteur's work, if you think about it, everything that he did was to answer a question that was brought to him, that was bothering people at that point in time. Why was milk going bad, for example? So he worked out why it was going bad, and he found solutions to. So so Pasteur's work represents what he did research to address the needs of the community he lived in. So, and then there is this innominate quadrant, which I think most of Indian research falls into, because we just want to publish papers and we forget about it. So Donald Stokes suggested that you should put more money into the Pasteur's quadrant. So where is it? I mean, that is about money, right? So what about us? So I just wanted to, so when I read about this, so I thought I should also try and evaluate what I did over my, over my career. So this is one of the first ICMR grants that I received. So you'll see that this has got nothing. It is just a paper that we published. So although we got some money from ICMR, in those days it was quite a lot of money, but this is firmly in the innominate quadrant. So no use. Nobody has cited that. I mean, very few people have cited that paper, and it's just practically of no use. So this is the research we should not do. So I don't want to show anybody else's work, but this is what I'm trying to show you my work. So then subsequently we got some more money from DBT at that time, and we did something which had some use, potentially, possibly. If we found something, it could have been useful. So here, this one, I think it falls just out of the innominate quadrant. It was probably partly useful because we said that, okay, you could detect some disease activity which people were not detecting, and you could use some techniques to detect it. So this is what we found at that point in time. So, but this is not enough, right? We can't do research like this. We have to progress, and so thankfully we did more and more work, which now falls. But we are clinicians, right? We don't really do basic science, so we can only go to this part of the quadrant. We can only do things which are useful. We don't do basic science research, but all of you do basic science work. So you should aim to go to the Pasteur quadrant. So that is where everything lies. So you should really work towards addressing common questions which require a solution, and you should try and work in those areas, because you waste time working on not useful things. You waste time. It's an opportunity cost. You only have, say, 20 years of active research life left. So in that sense, you should try and utilize all of it to make useful things. So, so I can only reach this stage, but all of you can reach the Pasteur's quadrant. So that was the first value of death. So what do we do? I mean, as directors and as institutional research heads, we should try and prioritize application-based research, at least now, because we don't have enough money in this country. We don't have so much money, and we'll come to that. So we can't afford really to invest only in the pure sciences. I'm not saying you should not invest in the pure sciences, because whatever we have today comes from that investment in pure science that our earlier people did. So we should invest in pure sciences, but we should prioritize investment into application-based science so that we can produce products that are useful for this country. So that was the first value of death, where we can do something. As scientists, we should learn to focus on things which are application-based. The second value of death is, I think, funding, because you just have a look at this. So the amount of funding that is available, this is healthcare-based research, biomedical research, and I'm sure this is true for every kind of research. So this is just, so you see that India spends just a fraction, a small fraction of what the US spends. Obviously, they are able to do much more research. We don't have money. So that also tells us that whatever little money we have to spend it usefully. We can't spend it on, doing that innominate research, which is just for publishing papers. We should make it count. And the other important thing is, which I realized, is that if you look at the United States, most of the money for research comes from industry, which means pharma industry or philanthropic funding or anybody else. Whereas in India, it is mostly by government. So we can't blame the government really, because the government is spending most of the money that is involved in research. So we get grants from all these government agencies, but we need to make an effort to reach out to industry. So which is what we are trying, all of us are trying actually, to try and reach out to industry, make them spend more, so that a greater contribution of the money comes from industry, because they can really pay. And India is being a poor country, you can't expect government to cover so much of research. So these are the two things that we can do to alter this balance, improve the amount of funding that is available for research. The third thing is regulation. So all of you who have tried to bring products to the market or any drug, or even do research using drugs in human subjects, it is a nightmare to do research, get regulatory approvals. So things are improving. It's not that people are not aware of this, but they are improving quite a bit in this country, because everybody is starting to realize now that we need to really accelerate this. So things are happening there as well. So just to leave you with these thoughts, so how do we navigate these valleys? The three valleys. There are many more valleys of death, I'm sure, but these are three things where we can contribute. So I think as teachers, as students, we should disincentivize Me Too research. I mean, just because somebody has done it, we want to replicate it here, that's waste of money, waste of time, waste of money. So we should not do that. And there is also this feeling that something which is published, at least there in the medical field. So somebody has published something about a particular disease in the West, and we want to simply do it because that makes us look cool or something like that. So that is also not worth it. You should not do glamorous research. You should do things which are important for your country. So at least in that sense, I can say proudly that whatever research we have done has all been focused on diseases which are prevalent in this country or low and middle income countries, not in Western countries. So we can do that. The other important thing to do is, whenever we decide on research projects or research goals for an institute, we should prioritize goal-oriented research. And goal-oriented research means that it has to be necessarily multidisciplinary, because you can't have one person or one specialty sufficient to produce a good enough goal. So it needs to be multidisciplinary, and it needs to be collaborative. So when I say collaborative, I'm talking about academia and industry. So we need to get industry on board early on, so that they are also involved in the process. They have a stake in the process, so that they feel that it's worthwhile investing money and time into it, so that they will get a product at the end of it. So the other important thing is, it's better not to give small pots of money to people. Small amounts of money can only get you a little place. You'll probably get some innominate research done. You'll get a paper maybe, and that's it. But you should probably fund large projects, fewer large projects, the same amount of money going to larger projects, a few of them, so that you can actually make the money count. So you have to have questions. So what I meant by goal-oriented research is that you have to have a goal. Okay, I want to develop a new drug for multi-drug resistant tuberculosis in the next 7 years or 10 years. So that will bring the relevant people together. People will think about how to do this, what are the steps, and everybody will contribute. And that is one of the models which we can use to develop this sort of a research mindset. So this is something which I wrote last year when I took over as director, and it got some, I mean, some people liked it, some people didn't like it. So yeah, so the other important way of doing it is, I'm sure Dr. Saru is also doing it. So this is our institute. We are trying to develop collaborative ecosystem. So where we are trying to invite industry to come and incubate there. So we are giving them space so that they can come and they will have access to academia. We will have access to their equipment, which we can't afford, for example. So things like that. So this is along the model of several of these ecosystems which have been developed everywhere. You'll know about the Boston cluster, Boston biocluster, you know about the Leiden biocluster. So all of these are essentially the same thing. You have academia, you have industry, you have startups, you have everybody put together in one place so that things can happen. So that is one more way of doing this. So since I'm at NIAB, so I was just thinking about what are the things that we could do, because we said research has to be collaborative, it has to be multidisciplinary, it has to be goal oriented. So we can do several things, and I'm sure my only regret is that I did not come here earlier. But now that we are here, I'm sure we can find several ways of collaborating fruitfully, because we can produce products which are useful for. We are two very distinct institutes in the country, actually. So, and it's surprising that we have not collaborated before. So there are so many things that we can do, and some of them are quite easy to do straight away. We can develop a joint biobank of, so we do vaccines, we develop vaccines at THSTI. And so we can do, a lot of it is done, preclinical stuff is done there, small animals we do, but we can do large animals here. So lots of things can be done together. And we are now in the process of developing a virus biobank, which is a human virus biobank. So if you have a biobank for, say, animal viruses, we can have a One Health biobank, which will be a really useful resource for this country. And it's in the theme, in keeping with the theme of the One Health theme. So many things can be done. And there are some scientists who are working on scaffolds, extracellular matrix scaffolds, which derived from animal products. So these can be, tested also. They can, and we can use your expertise in developing these. So lots of things can happen. So these are just things which I, in my limited knowledge of what we can do, I just put these things together before I came here. So there is quite a lot of scope for collaborative work between our institutes. So yeah, so there are also shared facilities, right? So we can share large facilities, and we can create facilities which are shareable for not only the two institutes, but other institutes as well. And one more thing, which is a very easy to do thing, we already do an annual vaccinology course at THSTI. We can have an annual vaccinology course, which is an One Health course, so which can be, which is actually very well funded. It is funded by CEPI. So that would be a very important thing, and it can be easily done. It can be, we can start one next year onwards. So lots of things can be done, and I'm sure you all will have more ideas as well. So this is just something which I just put together in a hurry. So that's about it. So I'm sure at the end of it, you don't know how to do translational research better than what you started off, but this is just some thoughts that I've been having for the last 1 year or so, and I'm sure they will develop, and you will also get new ideas about how to do it. And I'll leave you with sunset at Lansdowne. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for that wonderful talk. I think we might take some questions
Sure.
about that.
If there are questions, I'll be very happy. Particularly from students.
Like in India, like everybody is running behind over glorified things. For example, when it comes to number of publications, and there's been a report recently I read, although the number of publications is high, but the number of attractions also are higher. And that is probably because of the NIRF ranking system, They look at the number of publications, so the self-citation number also increases. Universities are behind publicity that we are NIF ranked top 10 because of the number of publications. But obviously, all of them fall into that quadrant which you showed. So how about changing policies that number of publications or the number of citations don't mean anything?
So you see, okay, you are a student, right?
Yes.
So one lesson for you is that don't try to change something you can't change. You can't change policy, right? Not even, I mean, many of us interact with policymakers, but you can't change policy because that is a very, so what you can do at your end. So this is what I tell my fellows and students. So you want to answer a question. When you take up a research project, you want to answer a question. You identify a question which you feel passionate about, or you feel it's worth answering, and you get an answer to it. That itself is the reward. Don't worry about where it will be published. If the question was good enough, it will be published in a big journal. So don't worry about it. As long as you do your work, you want to answer a question. Simple. All of us are looking to answer questions. You ask a question, you try to answer it with your research. It may be basic research, it may be clinical research. You try and answer it. And if your question is good enough, if your work is good enough, your quality of work is good enough, it will be published in a big journal automatically. That will happen. Don't work on that. That should not be your goal. Your goal is to answer the question. So as long as you keep that in mind, all that will go away. It will not be relevant anymore. So don't worry about NIRF rankings. Don't worry about citations. Don't worry about so many things.
Hey, it's Anand here. In one of your slide, you showed that value of death of technology. In that, you showed that according to you, it's a sigmoidal curve, not a valley.
No, I said there are multiple valleys of death. It's not just one.
Because there is no, I don't see there is uphill somewhere. It's always downhill.
No, it went up in the
At
end.
last it goes
Yeah,
up, but in between there is not,
Yeah.
I don't see anything which is coming up normally in our research. So I just wanted to curious, where is the uphill which you can
No,
see in
uphill,
between?
once you traverse all these valleys of death successfully, only then you can
Okay,
look
got
for
it.
Hi, Karthik. Here, back.
Hi.
So I'm unable to find what's the basic difference between India and US, where you initially started with a slide where you're talking about drugs, some odd number like 59 versus like 5, which are not at all useful. So still, can you
So
give a little?
I just showed you the three things which are, I mean, there are many differences, but the three things which are different are, first of all, they have prioritized doing research which is useful, which produces products. So they do more research in the pastures quadrant. They develop more drugs. Producing a drug, developing a drug is in the pastures quadrant, because you are doing research which is focused to say, for example, how did they do the mRNA vaccines, for example? They wanted to find a vaccine for COVID, and they did it in record time. So that is how they do their work. So now there are enough people who are working only on, say, cancer vaccines, for example. They only do that. They have a goal that we have to have a vaccine for one particular cancer. So that's how they work. So now you have the cancer moonshot. Before President Biden had invested a lot of money in that. So that is one way of investing money. So, and doing research, which is in the fastest quadrant. Second is that they have lots of money, and a lot of money comes from industry as well. We don't have that. We don't have lots of money, and we don't have money from the industry. And the only thing we can do is we can get more money from industry. And the third thing is their regulation is much, much faster. So if you have to have, so we have a couple of products which are in development, so-called rapid development, accelerated development, and we've been working on it since I joined. It's more than a year now, and we've still not gone to phase 1. Whereas in the US, typically it would take 3 to 6 months to go to phase 1 from a product, a lead, which goes to phase 1 in human trials. So we have still not been able to reach phase 1 in more than, say, 15, 16 months. So these are three differences which are sufficient to explain that difference. There are many more differences, but I just wanted to highlight things which we could impact on.
I was just curious, like for the first quadrant, for example, you take Japan or US, they were completely packed up with the first quadrant where they have tons of data to crosstalk with the fastest quadrant or next quadrants. That could be the major reason. What are your comments on that?
So you're talking about pure science, right? So the investment in pure science has happened over time in all these countries, mainly in Europe in the beginning, but then subsequently in the US as well. But ideally, I'm not saying that we should not invest in pure science, but we have only a small pot of money. How do you best use that money to have results? So we can't now do blue sky research. We can't spend so much money on that. We have to have a proportion which is much larger, which is allocated to work which will produce results. It has to be, in my mind, it has to be say 80-20 or something like that. It can't be 80-20 the other way, which is how it was in the beginning. But then at that time, they could afford all this. The industrialized countries at that point in time, they could afford all that. No, retractions are not a function of.
Not only retractions, particular drug is bring into some specific stage and it may fall.
No, we need to take them through. I mean, that is where we should invest in. We have to invest in that whole cycle so that it reaches where it wants. So you have to have a goal-oriented research. You have to fund things which will be the ultimate goal should be that you produce a product, or you produce a drug, or you produce an answer for a particular question. So without that, we cannot. You can't do discovery research only right now.
I have a question.
Sure.
In fact, it's not a question, but an appreciation of the fact that you were able to self-criticize your work and then, made us understand the quadrants. I think that is probably one of the best thing which sharpens the researchers towards success. So having said that, my question is, how do we get rid of this self-doubt syndrome, especially in the young researchers' mind? Your thoughts about it, young researchers, including students.
So self-doubt is what I showed in the beginning. Can we do science? That part of it.
Yes.
So I think that is where senior researchers should lead. I mean, it is important to realize that we are not doing good research, not because we are unable to do it. It's because we don't have the critical mass of scientists. We don't have enough money, and we have a system which was not geared to do this. We were in survival mode, right? All these years, we were a poor country. Despite that, we invested in research. I mean, if you see post-independence, which country in the world invested in science? We have all these institutes which were the product of that investment, which are the product of that investment. So there was a lot of forethought put in by all these people who established this country, the scientific establishment in this country. So it is not that we have to recognize that people have put a lot of thought into it. And we have done, to the extent possible, with the amount of money, we've been able to do good work. So that is, I think that realization is important. It's okay to criticize ourselves. It's okay to say that we have not done much, but we have done quite a bit when compared to so many countries in the world who are better off than us. So you can take examples. You can take examples of our space program, for example. It received enough funding from government, and all the people. It's mostly you will be surprised the amount of, for whatever people may say, we don't have free flow of technology from the West. So we had to develop a lot of the technology that was involved in all these space programs. All the space program in this country, all of them are indigenous technologies. It's very difficult to get technology from anywhere else. Nobody gives you that. Same for the nuclear program as well. So nobody shares that. So everything was developed indigenously. So there is a lot of science that is going on. So if you fund it adequately, if you get the right number of people and right people, you will be able to do good research. So I think that is the realization that people have to recognize. So students have to understand that we have done, despite against all odds, we have been able to do a lot of good work. He asked.
Thank you so much for your talk, sir. So you told that the industry is a major contributor now. So we should be targeting the industry. So there's a dilemma we always have about innovation and redundant research. So industry would not be interested in investing in basic sciences. Of course, they would want to invest in something that is translational or something product oriented. But when we look at products, most of the products are already in the West. So most often when we try to do it in India, we have one reason that we have to make it suitable to India. And in the name of innovation, we have redundancies quite often. So how do we actually lure the industry to invest into our research? Since you are already into translational research and cardiac health, as I see. So what is it exactly that the industry wants from academia that would actually be lucrative for them to invest?
So I have to say that you're curtailing yourself by saying that all the products are already there in the West. No,
most of the products.
No. You don't even know what products we need. So if everybody had thought that way, that all the products are already there, then there's no new product, right? So the important thing for such a thing is that you have to understand what do we need. So we have this the biodesign unit at our institute. So they do an immersion. They go to say a ward, for example, and they just simply they're not physicians, they are engineers or they are somebody else. So they just look at what's happening. So somebody is having difficulty, say sterilizing a particular thing. So they think about it differently. I mean, so whatever you're doing, you're just doing it with that one focus. You don't understand what is not there, what is not happening, what could be done better. So you need to get those kind of thinking in. So it is not that all the products are already there. There are infinite number of products that can be developed and that will be aligned to the needs of this country or our people or whatever you're doing. Maybe there is something which you need to do better, which you can always find. So what we are doing is we are kind of reverse engineering whatever is there elsewhere, and then we are trying to do. That's not what I'm talking about. We're talking about original research. We're talking about doing things which are going to be useful for us.
Yes, so that is where I wanted to ask. How do you actually differentiate that? How do you avoid redundancy when there are so many options around?
So that depends on the question, right? So you ask the right question. The question is critical. There is nothing else that is critical. It depends on what is the question that you're asking. If your question is that how do we make this product cheaper, it may be a worthwhile question. It may be a worthwhile question. It may be a worthwhile question to address also. But then that is the question. But supposing you ask a question, how do we develop a cure for this particular disease, which is not seen anywhere else? That is the question. So if you answer that question, you have a new product. It is not there anywhere else. So the question is the critical thing. So you have to ask questions. The right question is important.
Thanks.
Sir, my question was somewhat similar to what he asked. Like you said that we need to attract industries more. So I was just curious that would you like to share some of your experience or some of your insights about how you have faced in collaborating with industry, or somewhat like, is there a line that can be drawn between being a scientist and being a salesman to the industries, or is there something difference between how to do translational research? Is it equal to how to get the money?
Okay. I cannot, you seem to think that I have been doing translational research all my life. No, I've been involved in this for just about a year or so. So my experience is very limited, and it's probably just a little more than all of you. So what I can tell you is that Indian industry has traditionally been doing what he said. We've been trying to make products cheaper, for example. So we've been trying to find workarounds. So we used to have something called process patent for drugs, which was there earlier on. So you make a molecule, the same molecule, you make it through a different process, you could avoid the patent. and it could become cheaper. So that was a worthwhile thing to do at some point in time, but not anymore because that doesn't produce new products. So industry has been geared to that. Indian industry has been geared to that. So they are more into, their money comes from marketing generics. For example, once drugs go off patent, they are more interested in producing that. They are interested in different markets. So their mindset is that, but it is changing. So now we are able to partner with industry who is interested in developing new products which are original, which are our own products, and they realize that. So it is a gradual process. So like we are changing about, I mean, like we should be changing about how we think about what research to do. Same is the case with industry, because they've been used to do a different sort of thing. That is where their revenue was coming from. But if they have to become really big players like the Novartis or other big pharma, then they have to really think that it is worth investing in this sort of a thing, so that it will yield something in the long term. And I just wanted to tell you that it's not that industry does not do basic research. So you see semaglutide, which is the new blockbuster, which was the weight reduction drug, that had 20 years of basic science, which the industry funded. So it is not that industry does not fund basic research. Industry does. So they have to have that long-term vision, and that will change. That will happen. So we have to wait for that to happen. But we also have to change along with that.
When we talk about this product-based research, yes, the steps are mostly into the policy range. So technically, it's a different policies, and if somebody is doing the product-based research, and if this is different kinds of policies, kind of hindrances, you can say. So ultimately it becomes not the responsibility of the researchers how to go into that, because definitely if somebody is trying like it, they get stuck to some places. Otherwise, they don't have any other option just to go into the basic research.
So actually, I think I should clarify. So the three valleys that I chose deliberately, the first valley is something which we can do as researchers. We choose to do what kind of research we want to do. So we want to do a particular kind of research. So that is in our hands entirely. The second thing is about the money. So where you get the money from. So we have to make it so as administrators or as research coordinators, we have to make it easier for us to interact with industry. So for example, all our institutes are doing this. So we started last year to have formal industry outreach programs. So industry also has to know what you're doing. So if your basic research is of very high quality, they will be interested in it because they also see a future in that. So that is the second part. That's also not in the realm of somebody else's policy. It's still with us. The third thing is the regulator. So that is not entirely in our hands, but we can lobby. So everything changes. See, everybody realizes this. It's not just that you and me are realizing this now. It is the government also is made up of people. So regulators are also people, and they are also there because they understand something. And it's just that we've been doing things in a particular way. It takes some time to change. So everybody is open to it, and we have to bring it to their notice. You have to say, okay, this is what we can do. You take solutions to them. So we did that for regulation. So there are some redundancies in the whole regulatory pathway. So we suggested that you can take this out because nobody else in the world wants this. Why do you want this? Because it's not relevant anymore. So they are open to it. So we can do that. So the first two are firmly in our hands, and the third one is also partly in our hands. So we can work on all of them. It's not that none of it is in our hands.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for that wonderful talk. And I think you can take more questions during the tea time. So I would now like to request Director Ma'am to kindly felicitate our guest.
Yeah, I think it was a great talk, and simple things, yet a very important thing, one which is very critical for us, Professor Karthik, is in an animal industry, the things to get them in a lucrative mode for industry is kind of a very big challenge in front of researchers.